The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio. It's a lovely Sunday evening. Tonight we have my co-host with us, Nyssa. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
And we're just waiting for our guest at the moment. He doesn't seem to be showing us available right now, but our guest this evening is John S. Captain, who is the partner or boyfriend of Tiffany Jenks, who was murdered back in 2013. And we'll be talking about her story and what happened the night that she was murdered, and what's been happening since then, really, after that case, and the 3 people who were convicted of her murder, and basically what's happening with John right now. And I can see he's just I think he's just come online now. Just bear with me 1 minute. He's calling me, but I can't answer it while I'm on air, so just bear with me a minute.
Oh.
Hi, John. We're on air now.
Okay.
Hi,
excellent.
John.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Well, I had a breaker blow in my room, so I had no Wi-Fi for a minute, but I'm here.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yes, sir.
I was just telling our listeners about the story the last few minutes. For anyone who's listening right now who hasn't heard your story, I was just giving a bit of background as to what happened with Tiffany.
Excellent.
Do you want to start with maybe a little background, like how you met Tiffany and what happened basically that night that she was murdered?
Yeah, sure. Basically, I had met Tiffany about a year and a couple months before she passed away. I have an office that's connected to a rental home in my city in Portland, Oregon. And I was playing kind of like disco dance music, and she was waiting for someone outside my rental home, and she kind of wandered that way, and my employee started talking to her, and so he invited her for a tour of my building, and she ended up there, and we started talking, and she kind of never left. And so we began to date shortly after that, and so that lasted on and off for a year and a couple months until due to her drinking mostly, and then leading up to the night that she had been murdered, she was telling me things that I had absolutely zero clue what they meant. She talked of stuff that I guess probably your listeners would understand, but I certainly didn't, and nor would I have believed it anyways. But a lot of things like dark forces and time stopper, gatekeeper, just things that made no sense to me. But at the time, I thought it was from her drinking, and she had always told me, "You have no idea who I am, and when you find out, I'm afraid of what's going to happen." And I didn't understand that at all. I thought she was nuts. But I would later learn more about her life about 6 months after her murder.
Right. Was she working for the power company when you met her? Or she
no, she had just finished. She had just finished working for the Bonneville Power Administration, which, for those people that don't know, the Bonneville Power Administration is probably the largest power provider in America, or one of. They operate a minimum of 21 dams on the Columbia River, as well as a nuclear power plant of which she was a top scientist in charge of that. And her father was in charge of Los Alamos Nuclear Laboratory, and he had died in 2010. So she was pretty upset over his death, but what was very odd was how she spoke of him. It was always so weird and nonstop and strange, and especially when she drank, even worse. But I always tried to tell her, Tiffany, don't talk about your dad when you're drunk, and but basically, it was very strange to me that she talked about him nonstop. At the time, she had quit the Bonneville Power Administration about, I'd say, 8 months after before I met her. So she was already stopped working at the dams.
Do you know why she quit?
I do now. At the time, I didn't. At the time, she just didn't want to work anymore. She was done. She worked there 13 years. She got retirement plus Social Security, which totaled about $5,000 a month for doing nothing. And so she really had it made. But at the time, all of that stuff that we're about to talk about was new to me. So even if she had told me, I would have never believed it.
Okay. So do you want to talk about like the days leading up to the night she was murdered? Like
Yes.
how was she acting? Were there any sort of like people visiting her or any kind of strange, anything out of the ordinary like in the days leading up to her death?
Yeah, and looking back, of course, like I know now a lot more than I did then, but there were a lot of people in my life too that shouldn't have been, but I didn't know this. People that had befriended me oddly, and I would meet them at a shopping center and become friends, and so these people that do this murder stuff are very smart. They go, and in fact, I had talked to Vanessa Bates, obviously, who's Max Spear's mother, and Sarah, him. But I said, you got to go back like a year before somebody dies. And in my case, the same as well. When Tiffany died, I really needed to analyze what was going on 6 months before she died, and then 6 months after she died, who was in my life. But focusing on Tiffany, the things that were odd to me, I started getting a series of emails during a time in which we were not together, which was the last 60 days of her life. And September 26th and September 27th, she said very specific things like that we were going to die, and that what people were liars, and that I'm never going to see her again, and those sorts of things. And I just disregarded those emails as, you're drunk, what's your problem? I was just really, I guess I would say, really rude about it because I didn't believe any of it. And so that obviously is sad, but the reality of it is I didn't understand any of what was happening. So I was getting a series of emails. The key to this is that she had disappeared pretty much from my life for the 60 days prior to her murder. But she was still texting me and emailing me like crazy. But all of it was getting more strange, to say the least. The night that she came to my home, which was basically the night that she passed away, or that was murdered rather, was October 7th. I got a series of strange emails during the day that said, I have my bags and I'll see you at 9 p.m. That's from Tiffany. And then from her same account in all capital letters, I have guns, I'm going to kill you. And so I responded, okay, whoever you are, because I knew it wasn't Tiffany. And I just disregarded them as nonsense. So that night she comes to my home and at about 8:30 at night in a taxi cab. And my closed circuit television cameras record her coming in, hugging me, saying she loved me. She was crying. She hadn't seen me in a long time. And basically we went into the house. I made her some food. And then she told me she would go to treatment the next day because she was drinking again, of which I don't care if somebody drinks. I only care if you yell at me when you drink. But being that hindsight is 20/20, I now know what she was doing. She was going into one of her altars, but I didn't understand any of the mind control about any of that stuff at the time. But so that night, I made her some food and she ate. And then she went to go grab some beers out of her purse. Well, she's not allowed to drink on my property no matter what, period. We've just been through hell together. So I grabbed the beers, and as I'm pouring them out, she gets pissed off and goes out the back door and starts to smoke a cigarette outside. Unbeknownst to me, she hid a beer outside, and she's opening it on my back porch. She has that beer in her hand. By the time I get done pouring her beers out that are inside the house, I go outside, and that's the recording that people can listen to. That's on the Tiffany Jenks murder Facebook page if they go to the videos section. And what that is it's my cell phone recording the audio, but my closed circuit television camera recording her and me sitting outside. And it's just a black and white, closed circuit television camera recording. But in that recording, she says, I said to her, "Hey, do you love me?" And she goes, "Make me a Mountain Dew and vodka and just shut the F up." And I said, "Shut the F up? Look at me." And she's looking down like she's thinking. She goes, "I'll do whatever you want. I'm just not going to die tonight." And I said, "You what?" "I'm not going to die tonight. I'm not going to die tonight." And I went into this thing where I said, "Tiffany, I love you." And I started crying and stuff. And so that was the last recording or time where we talked. And shortly after that, she went into one of her altars where she flips out and says, "I have to leave right now." Like she just goes from, normal to absolutely out of control in 1 second. And I don't know what the trigger was because I wasn't aware of it at the time, but I'm assuming it was a phone call. But she absolutely flips out and she wants me to call her a taxi, of which I did. The taxi comes and the driver can confirm all this. I mean, they saw him. Tiffany's hugging me, crying, saying she loves me. I put the bags in the trunk of the taxi cab, and the cab driver, I look him in the face and I say, "Thank you." And I go back in my house and Tiffany leaves.
Did Tiffany say where she was going?
No, I think I said to her, so when she said, "I'm not going to die tonight," I go, "So you're going to go to some hotel? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? I don't understand." But she didn't tell me specifically where she was going. But she did say something that really bothered me right in the beginning of the recording. She goes, she says, "I don't want you to get involved. I don't want you to," she starts to say get involved, but she says, "I don't want you to hit me. And this is not your problem. This is my effing problem." And I'm like, "Hit you? I've never hit you. Why do you always say that I hit you?" Because it really bothered me that she had said that I hit her. And so we went into about a 2 or 3 minute discussion in the recording that people can hear on the Tiffany Jenks Murder Facebook page, where I say, "Why do you keep saying that I hit you when I've never, ever hit you?" And so she leaves in the taxi and goes to a hotel, checks in, and then she walks across the street to the bar by herself to meet 3 people that, according to the police, she does not know them. Well, that's just not true. But so Tiffany leaves the hotel room to walk across the street by herself to go to the bar to meet her 3 killers at like around 12:30. Well, they show up about 12:30 also. But now keep in mind that there are 3 bars within like 30 feet of each other. Okay, so there's one directly connected to each other. They share the same wall, and then there's one across the street. Well, it takes the killers and Tiffany a couple minutes to figure out which bar they're at. But she goes and she has 2 drinks by herself in the bar, and she tells the bartender that night, "My life is over." Okay? And she walks outside at 1:43 a.m., and this is where you start to begin to see something's not right for 2 reasons. 1, the police aren't telling the truth, and 2, why would she go outside if she knows the killers are out there? Okay? So when the public, when your listeners check into this, it just won't make sense. So Tiffany's at the bar. She tells the bartender her life is over. And at 1:43 a.m., she goes outside to smoke a cigarette by herself and meet her 3 killers. And exactly at that time, actually it comes up 1:41 a.m., they walk up to her and shake her hands. And the police claim the way they knew that they met for the first time was they all shook hands. Okay, well, that's weird. So basically, you got 1:43 and 1:41 as a time where they all meet, and then they drive away. So now there's 3 killers, and they talk for a minute while Tiffany smokes a cigarette. And at 2:11 a.m., the 4 of them get in the car to drive away. So the 4 of them drive away at 2:11, and Tiffany gets shot at 2:30, which is 19 minutes after they leave the bar. So presumably, we can all believe that if Tiffany left the bar with them, they were all happy, 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 right? I mean,
how do you know that she was shot at 2:30 if
because
it was just her and the 3 killers?
Because 2 people in their homes heard the gunshot go off, independent homes, 2 different homes,
Right.
heard the gunshot go off at 2:30 a.m.
Okay.
So it's not contested. The other thing is that we know by the closed circuit television cameras that they drove away at 2:11 a.m. We know that for sure. It's in all the reports. And so with that said, it's a 19-minute difference between the time she left the bar happy, 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 according to police, and the time she was killed. But when you check into what the police claim, they claim that Tiffany and them went driving around and all these different sorts of diversion tactics. But clearly, we know for sure 2 people in their home reported the gunshot go off at 2:30 a.m. Now, the key to that is that they also claim that the 2 people that drove the car or drove and was in the passenger's front seat, which was Josh and Michelle, those 2 didn't even hear the gun go off. Now, it was their gun that shot Tiffany. They had sold it to the shooter, Daniel Burnell, who's currently in jail for the murder. But the key to this is that the other 2, Michelle and Josh, they didn't hear the gun go off. And in fact, after shooting Tiffany, they all got back in the car, and Michelle and Josh, the driver of the car and the passenger in the front seat, they didn't even know why Tiffany wasn't in the car for the ride home. But they drove away from this Blue Lake Park in Oregon and went back to the hotel where the 3 of them molested Michelle's daughter, it's all in the court record. You can read about this. And then the very next, it wasn't the next morning because Tiffany got shot at 2:30. But so 2:30 a.m., Tiffany gets shot. They get back to the hotel at 3:30 a.m., and they drive the shooter to the bus to go back to California at 11 a.m. in the morning. And so basically, he came from California, shot Tiffany, and then left, about 4 hours later, I believe. And with that said, you got 3 or 4 different stories. You have the police story, you have the shooter story, and then you have mine. I'm just going by the facts that were reported in the police reports along the way. And the media, for instance, if you were to look at what they said about Tiffany Jenks' murder, they have some big story about how Tiffany was a drunk and she was acting irrational and all these different sorts of things to make you believe that Tiffany's a horrible person and she deserved to die.
Right. Did Tiffany know any of her killers, and if so, how did she know them?
Well, at the time I didn't know because I didn't know any of these people and I wasn't aware of any of this information. But now that I've been investigating it for quite some time, I did get a rebuild of my cell phone that Tiffany had of mine. And with that came 6 recordings. And this was the real turning point in the investigation of her murder. About 5 months after she died, I got passwords from her mother into her iCloud, which they were just trying to appease me. They weren't really trying to help me. But they knew her iCloud was deleted out. I'm sure they did. But basically, me and Apple got into her iCloud, and it was completely deleted out 2 days before she was murdered. But because she had my cell phone and because we shared iTunes in our house, when I rebuilt that phone, I had 6 audio recordings. And 2 of the recordings were with her and her killer, Joshua Robinette. Now, in that recording with Tiffany and Josh, what you will hear is that, and this is all on YouTube, just search Tiffany Jenks murder, and then add the word Josh. But with the recording with Josh is that he knew Tiffany's father, and Tiffany and him talked, and he said he had to go buy a new gun. And this was about 6 days before she was dead. And so basically she knew Josh. And then the way that she knew Michelle Warden Brosey, which was the female of the killers, was that Tiffany used a taxi cab service called Bill's Town Car Service, and his driver for the cars was Michelle. And in addition to the recordings that I talked about with Joshua Robinette, Tiffany was also in recordings with her therapist. And that was the recordings that eventually led me to the understanding that Tiffany was a mind control victim.
Do you know why she was seeing a therapist? Was that because of her drinking problem? Or
I think she
something
was
else?
seeing a therapist partially because of my relationship with her and what she had talked about in the 2 hours that she was with her therapist was, she told him 100 times she was in love with me and, she couldn't figure out how to deal with me or whatever. But I think that she was trying to understand, based on the audio that I have, she was trying to understand why she was going to be killed and or taken to another world, so to speak. And if you type in Tiffany Jenks and therapist on YouTube, you can listen to the audio of her therapist talking to her. But her therapist, without a doubt, is involved in the occult world. And so backing up a little bit with that, with the recordings, even though I had the recordings of Tiffany talking to her therapist about dark forces and, vampires and things, none of it meant anything to me at all, zero. And so it wasn't until about 6 months after her death when I met Clyde Lewis, who's a famous talk show host in Portland, Oregon, where Clyde Lewis was at a restaurant and so was I. And he said he had a talk show. And then I handed him my cell phone that had the recordings of Tiffany on them. And his mouth dropped. He couldn't believe. In fact, people can listen to that story, but he couldn't believe what he was hearing about, Tiffany getting placed under mind control. In fact, she talked about demons. She said she had demons in her head. She talked to him about that she wasn't going to differentiate herself from the crow. You mean get away from the Illuminati, whatever that means. But a lot of the audio that was in the recordings with her therapist was very occult. And in fact, he puts her under mind control with a pen. He taps on the table. He goes tap, tap, tap. And then you can kind of hear Tiffany kind of go, whoa, what's going on here? And they have a dialogue. And she says, I don't know who you are. And you think you're a dark angel? And he said, I don't think I'm a dark angel. But all these recordings back and forth, both Fritz Springmeier, who I met the following day in Portland, Oregon, and Clyde Lewis, and then later David Icke and Richie Allen and other people were able to decipher the meaning of the mind control, him telling her, her therapist telling her, don't tell anybody who you are or it'll make you a target, and targets get shot at first. And this was 4 days before she was actually shot. Mm-hmm. So
do you know how she found this therapist? I mean, I'm guessing it was no coincidence that she was using this particular therapist.
I never heard of him before. She never told me. But in the audio recordings with him, he had seen her before in 2010, I think 10 or 11. Yeah. Because she says, right after her dad died, she tried to kill herself because she found out she was a robot. And those recordings are available on YouTube. She says, the day I figured out I was a robot, I wanted to die. I took 20 trazodone because I couldn't believe it. I wanted to kill myself. And, I think that was the key to why she left her work. Because in the recordings with her therapist, she says, I don't want my hard work to go towards anybody else's death. And so it was really touching, actually, because, I hadn't seen her for 60 days. But these recordings were 4 days before she was dead. And in the recording, she says to him, that she's in love with me. And he tells her, you cannot have this person in your life. That's not allowed. Those kind of weird things. And she said, and the therapist says, well, whatever this fella tells you, disregard. And she goes, how can you say that? He can save the world. So I mean, she was totally positive towards me, even though she said our relationship didn't work out the way she wanted it to in the recordings, which, I understand. But I also believe she was being programmed to not, I think she was being programmed to believe that I hit her, which was very odd to me because I never did.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about her work and how that could be linked to why she died? I know that she was in control of some power stations, but there was also some kind of insider dealing going on. Do you want to explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Well, keep in mind that Tiffany was in full control of the 21 dams that controlled all the electricity for Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, basically in America, all the upper left-hand corner states, Northwest, if you will, but certainly millions and millions of people's electricity. And one day we began talking about her work, and she confided in me that she was told to write down a number that corresponded to what she was about to do on the dams. Now, you can imagine that the dams are how they create the power, and then they put that power on the grid. And because she raised and lowered the water levels, she was then the one that would, if you were to look forward, in the future, that would change the cost of power rates for the public. And she told me that she wasn't allowed to talk to these people on the other side of the glass, but that she was required or told to write down numbers corresponding to what she was about to do. And I said, Tiffany, because she was going to hand that piece of paper through a hole in the glass to day traders on the other side of the window that she was not allowed to talk to. And I said, Tiffany, that's insider trading. I mean, that's huge, Martha Stewart jail time, prison. And she's like, no, it's not, because I'm not talking to them. I said, that doesn't matter. Then give me the numbers and I'll trade electricity on the commodities market. And so unless I'm missing something here about how power is traded, and I'm certainly not the biggest expert, but I do trade and I do understand insider trading. And had she given me the numbers, I would be involved in insider trading. But I didn't know her, so I didn't. So it doesn't matter at that time. But my point is that Tiffany was involved in insider trading. Now, the key to that is that they're completely covering that up in what I'm divulging to the public, the police or whoever's in charge of that. They know for sure I've been blasting it all over America that here Tiffany's in charge of 21 dams. She's under mind control, and what a risk to our country that really is. And on top of that, if they want to say, okay, well, she's not under mind control and put that aside for security reasons, fine. She's still involved in insider trading, or she was at the time before her death. And so either way, you have an extreme cover-up going on in America about Tiffany. And I think that the public just isn't aware of how this 34-year-old girl landed a job running all the dams, and then what the insider trading part has to do with them and the trading commodities of the Bonneville Power Administration. And once you begin to look into what really happened in her murder, you'll start to see why they want to shut me up about it.
Okay. Did she ever explain to you who these people were that she was passing this information to? Did she give any names or?
No, she never gave me any names. She just told me the scenarios, and we talked about it about 10 times. And I think that over the time that we talked about it, she really got a disgusted, sick feeling in her stomach. The first few times she was ha he he, like, no, it's not, you're crazy. And as we talked about it a little more, she looked like she wanted to cry when we talked about it, because you think about all the elderly people or the people who are on low income. These people are getting stolen from by big corporate America. That's gross. And I think that she had a problem with that, and she should have, because, for instance, my mother, lived on $600 US a month, plus what I gave her. But that's disgusting to think that the Bonneville Power Administration is allowing this to go on. What she said to me specifically was, no, I don't talk to them. They're day traders on the other side of the glass. I only write down the numbers corresponding to what I'm going to do before I do it, and they trade based on those numbers. And I said, that's the exact definition of insider trading. To me, I'm not I think it's FCC or I don't know who, but I'm not the one that, I'm not an expert on trading. But if I can't have the numbers and they can, it doesn't seem right to me. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's not insider trading, but I don't see why she couldn't talk to him if it wasn't.
It just sounds a bit weird that she would be working in the same place where they're trading, stocks to do with electricity.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it's a real simple question. Somebody that's a trader, more so than me, I'm just a general public person, but somebody who's involved in the stock market should be able to answer this question and should be able to raise these questions to the Bonneville Power and ask them, why do they have day traders on the other side of the glass? And Tiffany was giving them information about what she was about to do. That, to me, an inexperienced trader myself, I see that as day trading. As insider trading.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. It just doesn't make any sense that someone who controls the power, the water levels and such at a power station would even be in the same building as someone who's trading, stocks and shares to do with electricity, because it's
billions of dollars.
It's just inconceivable to think that they would even, be in the same building, never mind work in the same building.
Yes, that's right. And the key was, she said, John, I'm not allowed to talk to them. And I think that was the key. And I made that very clear to her that, okay, so what you're really telling me in essence is you send them a text in theory, or you email them. But because you don't verbally talk to them, you're thinking somehow that then removes you from the equation. But I don't see that as being a viable excuse. You are still the reason that they are trading. And that's the key to this.
Do you know if she was making any money out of these inside trades?
Absolutely not. And she did not even know it was insider trading.
Right, so she didn't benefit in any way by passing this information onto these traders.
I couldn't imagine it's possible that she could have, because she didn't have any money.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar a year, a government entity. So if she was the top scientist at the company, and there was only 4 of them, I believe, that ran the dams total, just 4 people. And so they would rotate shifts, and they're controllers, basically. They're in a room with 20 computers or 100 computers. They run around and they type in numbers that make the dams go up or down. And these controllers of the dams, there's 4 of them, and they rotate shifts, basically. And so it's a very tight, there's probably only 100 people that have ever seen the room.
Right, so she would have...
It's a very high clearance room.
So she would have worked on a shift with 3 other people. Have you...
No, she would not have. She would have worked on a shift by herself.
Right.
And the other 3 would have rotated.
Okay. So do you know who these other 3 people are, and do you know if they were doing the same thing?
Well, first of all, I don't know what they were doing, because I never talked to her about other people, because it didn't matter to me. It mattered to me that she was involved in insider trading. But I do know that her ex-boss, who I met with about the murder, is involved in this Illuminati, New World Order stuff. And I thought his name is Dan. But I thought it was weird, because all the evidence that I showed him about her murder, he just discounted. Like I played him the recordings of the therapist saying, don't tell anybody or you'll get shot in the head. And then he said, well, that's not really a clue. And I said, okay, well, what about, here's Dan, the killer, saying he's going to go buy a new gun. He goes, well, that's not really a clue. And so, and one of the weird emails, and I met with him one time, and Dan also ran the dams as well. Tiffany was his replacement. But what I thought was odd about Dan was, one day he goes, John, all your conspiracy theory stuff is nonsense. My brother said we were in a Illuminati also. And I said, and what happened to him? Oh, he killed himself. I said, that's weird. So, so basically there's a huge connection to the occult world that's going on. And so you have 2 people for sure that have been at one time or another running the dams, Dan and then Tiffany. And I would have to believe that they are a very tight-knit group, and that collectively the Illuminati controls the dams as of today.
Right. Do you know if one thing that springs to mind is the Freemasons, and do you know if any of her family or friends are linked to the Freemasons at all?
No, I have no idea about that. The way I knew that Tiffany was involved in the Illuminati was because when Clyde Lewis did a show, and people can listen to the show, it's just type in Tiffany Jenks, Google, and Clyde Lewis, and it'll come up. But he did a show that night after meeting him, and callers called on the side. So he was doing the show, but on the side, his screeners, I guess, were taking calls. And two people that were very close to Tiffany called in and said that she was Illuminati. And after the show, now see, up until this date, I still didn't know anything about this stuff. So after he did his show, this was August, I believe it was August 6th of 2014. He calls me after the show and he goes, "Hey, John." I go, "Yeah." "Why didn't you tell me she's Illuminati?" And I said, "What is that?" And so he went in this big spiel, and he didn't know that I didn't know. I never heard of it. I thought the Illuminati was a cartoon. In fact, I asked a lady the other day here at the hotel, and she said, in Chicago, the Illuminati's a pizza parlor. So there's a lot of, I'm like, a pizza parlor? There's a lot of people that do not know what the Illuminati is, or they just don't believe it's true. And I was one of them, so I get how they feel. But so Clyde Lewis calls me and tells me Tiffany, this lady, Cynthia, which I believe is a ex-relative of Tiffany's, called the show and said Tiffany was Illuminati. Now, the following day after meeting Clyde Lewis that first day, which was about 6 months after she died, I met Fritz Springmeier. And Fritz Springmeier, who went through all my stuff at his house, he was able to tell Tiffany was he told me, "John, Tiffany's a monarch slave for the New World Order." And I said, "What the heck is that?" I had no idea. And so he hands me this book, Deeper Insights into the Illuminati. And I started looking at it, and every single thing about Tiffany made sense. Everything. She had in her phone, it said Papa. It said in his book that they die at 34. She died at 35. It said once her handler dies, they have suicide programming. Okay, her dad died, then she died. But there was about 50 to 100 things in that book, follow the yellow brick road, and then her therapist told her follow the yellow brick road. All of the things that were in his book were spot on about Tiffany, her life, and it really, I was in awe because I thought conspiracy theorist people were kooks. Mm-hmm. Now, I know for sure it's all 100% real.
Did they explain to you how they knew that she was in the Illuminati?
Well, one of the people that called, well, yeah, they did actually. One of the people that called was related to Tiffany. I believe she was married for about 30 days, and I believe it was her ex-husband's mother-in-law. So it would have been Tiffany's mother-in-law called and told the talk show host. And the other way we knew was Tiffany, besides the therapist and all those things, Tiffany wrote to me about all this stuff too, but I wasn't able to decipher it. Fritz Springmeier was, but Tiffany's father was related with R.J. Reynolds Tobacco, and they were best friends all through college and roommates. The son of the famous R.J. Reynolds, who are the 12 bloodlines of the Illuminati. So they had a very close connection to the R.J. Reynolds family her whole life. And Tiffany had written a lot of stuff that I showed Fritz Springmeier. And so from Fritz's professional background, he said within minutes he could tell that she was a mind control victim and a Illuminati New World Order, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the recordings. Do you know, did she record like all of her conversations or most of her conversations with you and other people? Or
no, I don't think so. I think that she had 6 total recordings that were saved in her phone when I rebuilt my phone that she had of mine. Now, I had recordings of us talking that were separate. I recorded her on several occasions, and because she was drunk, and I played it for her later, and she would say, I couldn't even believe that was me. I couldn't believe it, because she would be like, oh my God, just screaming at the top of her lungs in one of her altars, freaking out. And so I had recordings of me and her, and also me and Tiffany had bought iPads right when they came out, just around, I think it was 2013. But we both had bought iPads. 2012 when we met. And so we were recording our life already. We had videos. And I would say I probably only had 25 minutes total recording time of me and Tiffany on video total for her whole life. And her family had 0. So I would recommend anybody who loves someone to record them, because once it's gone forever. I mean, some of these people that are famous, like, maybe like, Max was famous, and also David Icke, or, these people have videos out in the world already. So that's different. But if you don't have videos of your loved ones, you had better record, because all I have of Tiffany is about 25 minutes, and it's on a USB chip. And to me, that's really sad. And then in terms of audio recordings, probably, I don't know, maybe an hour total of me and her talking. No, not even that, probably 30 minutes. But we recorded each other. And so total, I have 30 minutes of video, maybe 30 minutes of audio. In terms of what she recorded before she died, she had 6 recordings, because she knew they wanted to kill her. Now, in the recordings with her therapist, which was October 4th, 2013, the therapist says to Tiffany, "Are you recording?" And Tiffany said, "Yes." So he knew he was being recorded.
Right. Okay. So if he knew he was being recorded, why would he say trigger words to her, and why would he?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe because her iCloud was completely deleted out 2 days before she was dead. When I worked with Apple diligently, and I recorded the conversation with them to try to get into her iCloud to try to get clues to the murder, her mother appeased me and gave me her password stuff, because I had everything else. But when Apple got into her iCloud over the phone with me, the gentleman on the phone said her iCloud, and they know what they know. You can call them right now and just give them an account number. They know. Unfortunately, at the time, they didn't do what I recommended they do, which is record the IP that deletes the iCloud. At the time, they didn't have that technology. But they know for sure her iCloud was completely deleted out 2 days before she was dead.
Right.
So why would her therapist record? Oh, by the way, since I was the one that was supposed to get arrested for her murder, I was set up on the murder. So I was never supposed to be a contender in this investigation anyways. I mean, you look at the other clues that we have people involved in her murder walking around and around my store and my home the night she was at my house. I have the closed circuit television video of them circling the block. But I was never supposed to be around. I was supposed to be caught for the murder of Tiffany Jenks and blamed for it, and that I would have been shut up. It's just by the grace of God that all the things happened the way they did, and the killers scanned their ID at the bar.
Right. So how were the killers caught? How did the police work out that it was those 3 people who did it?
Okay, well, what happened was,
because none of the CCTV or anything has been made public, right?
Correct. Not one audio recording of any deposition has been made public, even though it's long solved. It's over, but they won't, because they know I have more facts, and they don't want to have to arrest more people. But they've never released the bar video either. But here's how the police found out. I get a call from a girl named Mercedes at my home, and it was about 11 o'clock October 9th, so the day after she was dead. She says, "John, have you seen Tiffany?" And I'm like, "No, why?" And she says, "Well, I'm here at the bar where she was last night. They're really worried about her, blah, blah, blah." And so at the time, I didn't understand what she was talking about, and she started almost hyperventilating on the phone. She tells me that she's really worried because I guess there was a girl that was killed that matches her description or something like that. Excuse me. And over the phone, at the time when she starts talking about this, I'm walking to my computer because I could tell she's really seriously disturbed on the phone. And I'm typing it in. And by the time I finish typing, she says, "Oh my God, John, Tiffany's dead." And so because she found out on Tiffany's Facebook page, her family had put "rest in peace" on Tiffany's page. So over the phone, this girl's talking to me, and at the same time, I'm typing it in Google, and it has a number to call the police. So I tell Mercedes to hold the line. I click over. I call the emergency number on the phone that they're listing for Tiffany's for this mysterious girl that's dead at Blue Lake Park, which the girl told me, and I talked to the police. They said, "Okay, 911. Yeah, I'm the boyfriend," and I'm crying. I'm freaking out. And I'm telling them the story is talking too fast. And they're like, "Okay, sir, what now?" I said, "I'm the boyfriend to the girl that's been killed at Blue Lake Park. And I have a girl on the other line that's at the bar where she was last night. And I don't want to click over because it's really loud. So I'm telling you the story first." And she says, "Okay, I understand now." Okay, so I explained it to her completely. And I was still crying and freaking out. And I clicked Mercedes on the phone. But the key to that is that the police tried to claim that she called the police, Mercedes, when it was me. The reason they did that is they didn't want to make me a witness to the murder. I was the one that called the police, and the phone records support that. So I clicked Mercedes on the phone, and then they sent like 9 police to that bar. And I don't know I think maybe we triggered the wrong police to go there because they knew the killers had scanned their ID upon entering the bar, and they saw the closed circuit television with Tiffany leaving the bar with her 3 killers. And so after that phone call, they also sent 1 cop to me, to my home, and Officer Johnson of Portland Police, of which he lied 100% in his words to in the police report about me. He tried to claim that me and Tiffany cuddled. That's not true. I told him me and her had sex that night she was at my home. And he also claimed that Tiffany left bags at my house. And I said, "No, she didn't. I never said that she left bags at my house." And none of that would become important until after 2 years later when I got my document request filled. And the whole police report was about these bags that she mysteriously left at my house. Well, that was a lie. And so it was clear to me that there were about 20 different reasons why I had proof that the police were setting me up on this murder. But to answer your question, the way they knew that Tiffany's killers, who they were, they scanned their ID at the bar before they left with her to kill her.
Okay. Do you know why they haven't made any of the bar video public? Is there something that is in the bar video that they don't want the public to see, or they don't want anyone to see?
Yeah, and I think that the public should actually be outraged about this part. But I have closed circuit television from my home and my business where Tiffany came to see me the night she died. And in that video, I have the killers walking by my store and the killers with other people that I know to be involved in her murder, which would total about 8 people. One of which is even the ex-district attorney of my city, who later became my legal help out of the blue. And so here's what they do, right? After they murder somebody, they send you all these other mind control victims to help you, okay? And if you're not knowledgeable about mind control, you would never believe it's true. But here's a really easy way for me to promise you it's true. If you go to the YouTube or on Facebook, Tiffany Jenks murder, and you look at the video, the people that are involved in her murder, who I have been saying are involved in her murder since the day she died on the video, that's the reason they will not release the video at the bar, because all their clothes and their hair will match identical to them being at the bar that night. So to answer your question, that's why. I have video that will prove there's about 8 people involved in her ritual murder.
Right. You said that the hotel where she was staying at, there were like 3 bars. So the video from all of those 3 bars is not available, I take it, and the hotel where she was staying.
That's correct. The hotel's actually across the street, so it was about 250 feet away or something to that effect. And one bar is across the street from each other, so you're real close. But the police are not allowing anybody to see the closed circuit television. In fact, in the courts, and this is how you know the whole courts and the police are all involved. They didn't use any video for their court proceedings at all. They used one still shot, I guess, and I still haven't even been able to get that. But the latest story I have from people who have made requests for that are media related have claimed that the Fairview Police Department in Portland, Oregon, want a release form done by every police agency that was involved in her murder before they will release anything. And trust me, that's not going to happen, because when I originally made my FOIA request, my document request in America, they hired lawyers to stop me. And they said, if I lose the court case to get the documents I'm publicly allowed to see, that I'd have to pay all the lawyers. And it was just like one ridiculous stop after another. But the key to this is that everything I was able to get, because after they killed Tiffany, 2 of them, Michelle and Josh, ran to Washington State. And Washington State has very strict laws that say they have no choice but to give you what you want. Okay? So what they did was they just said, well, we lost it.
Right.
And so,
that's
it's just
convenient.
ridiculous. Yeah, totally. It's convenient. And here's the point about all this. This is to help get killers who also molested a 9-year-old daughter. This is all in the court records. In fact, Joshua Robinette is still in jail not because he shot Tiffany in the head, but because he molested a 9-year-old girl after. So you've got pedophilia, murder, and so on.
Okay, we're about to go to a break, so we'll be. If you can just mute your microphone, John, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio. Before we continue with the show, I'd just like to remind you that Revolution Radio is a listener-supported station. We do rely on your donations to keep us on air, so please do go to freedomslips.com and go to the Support Us section where you can make a donation. You can either make a one-off donation or you can buy one of our seed packs. Our seed packs start at only $60. And all of our seed packs contain non-GMO, non-hybrid heirloom seeds. You can also join our monthly support club and make a monthly donation starting at only $10. And you can also access our archive. For only $5 a month, you can listen to all of our shows from all of our hosts. So please do go to freedomslips.com, the support us section, and make a donation if you can. And now we'll return to the show. Just want to make sure is Nissa and John still there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. How are you?
Hi there. Fine.
Hi,
Hi,
sir.
Nissa. Nissa, you were
Hi.
very quiet. You were very quiet in the first
Yeah,
hour.
I'm just listening, really, because you two are doing such an excellent job. I was just wondering how self-aware Tiffany was. You mentioned before that she had alters. Were her alters self-aware of each other, or was there dissonance between each one? And how many did you count that she had?
Well, I didn't understand any of it as it was happening in real time, but I only experienced the out of control Tiffany, and then the human Tiffany, and then the sexual Tiffany. So in my presence, but see, I would get her away from all of these pills that they were prescribing to her that I believed were killing her, the trazodones and the different things. But she had $190,000 in 1 year of pills and emergency room visits combined for suicides.
Wow.
The 12 months prior to me meeting her. And so this notion that she was okay before I met her is complete hogwash. She had 190,000, and being that I paid her medical when we were in Thailand, when she went to the emergency room. So she had downloaded her stuff onto our computer at home. And so I had a copy of her prescriptions and her emergency room visits prior to me meeting her. And so what you will see, though, is that the family tried to paint this picture like she was just happy, happy, happy. Yeah, except she was trying to die. She had 12 or 13 suicide attempts and $190,000 worth of medical. I think that she was getting medicated, 4 or 5 pills a day, trazodone and different really strong stuff. And she was an alcoholic, extreme alcoholic. And on top of it, she was going to the hospital for suicides. And all of the medication that she was being prescribed prior to me meeting her all said, do not take if you're suicidal. And so I recall going with her. I took her to treatment a couple times. And one time in particular, I was arguing with the doctors, and I'm saying, no matter what, if you give her any more pills, she can't go to Thailand with me on vacation, period. I'm not going to take her there in an altered state. And so to get her to stop taking the pills was a miracle. And she wrote to me often thanking me. And in fact, she even said her ex-boss, Dan, welcomed her back to life. And so they were very aware that I was getting her away from pills and drinking, because she was, not a very good person when she drank. But the whole point is that they try to make it out like, I'm the bad guy. I mean, I don't even know how long after I met her or even before I met her did I get set up on this murder. I don't even know. I will never know. But clearly, the plan was to make me the bad guy in their murder.
Well, it would tie up 2 loose ends, wouldn't it, I suppose?
Absolutely.
If she's monarch, then it would have actually begun in her childhood. It would have been a lifetime
Correct.
thing. It wouldn't.
But me meeting her, I don't know if I was planned into this before I met her, or if I was planned, or if they might have I might have met her randomly and then they had to react because she was talking, or I was planned into this before I ever met her.
Well, you did mention that they were trying to put the suggestion into her mind that you were harming her, that you were hitting her.
Correct.
And that would be some kind of that would be some programming that would end the relationship, like from her side of things. But obviously there was something else that kept it going.
I'd like to read something that she wrote to me. This is 9 days before she was killed. This is a text message from her on 9/28. It said, say a prayer for the pretender who started out so young and strong, only to surrender. Bye, John. You're never going to see me again. You were my soulmate, and I love you. And I said, and then I said, yeah, I agree. Everyone lied. What does that mean, Tiffany? ? It means that things would have been as they should be if people were honest, and we'll never know more than the thought of how great it all could have been. And of course, I replied, drinking ruined us. Yeah, well, I didn't know. I mean, I just always equated every single word out of my mouth was stop effing drinking. Stop.
Yeah.
But
well, that's
I
the
had no
logical
idea.
conclusion, and that is why a lot of people who are through these mind control programs will have drink and drug problems. That's the reason why a lot of the famous people always have addiction problems, because it's either a side effect of everything they've been through and they're trying to unconsciously deal with it, or it's actually programmed into them, so that as you experience when you see something strange and you think, why is that person doing it, you could just account it to the alcoholism.
Yeah,
And it brushes it under the
right.
rug, and it's an excuse to get them into rehab centers and on medication and all sorts of things.
Yeah, you're right, because she spoke about that often. She said, you know, we never get to talk about anything about life because we are always focused on me being an alcoholic. And in one of the recordings that I have, actually, I said, thank God I said this, and I'm not by any means a saint. You know, I was fighting her back in terms of her drinking, and it was driving me insane. But I did say, Tiffany, anytime you want to stop talking about drinking and talk about us or talk about something else, no problem. Just tell me and we'll stop. But I'm just telling you that drinking is the problem. And so she said to me, we never get to talk about anything else because always the alcoholism is the problem.
Yeah.
But I did tell her, thank God, because I mean, it's nice that I did say that. But I said, if you want to stop talking about drinking, we can. Let's talk about us or talk about whatever you want. So I was lucky to have that.
There is something I wanted to ask you. That's sort of like I've seen recently. I don't know if you've come across it, but there's a YouTube channel called Tiffany's Truth.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Where there's there seems to be on some kind of smear campaign to discredit you. And I just wanted to know if you'd listened to any of the recordings, and what do you know who that person is who's putting where they're getting these recordings from?
I don't know where they're getting them. I did say all along that they had stolen a phone of mine, and a girl that's involved in the murder, Amber Thornburg, also stole an iPad, which I reported to the police. But I know for sure that it's very easy to create any kind of a distraction you want. What you will notice is a few things about that. One is the date in which they came up with this idea of marketing against me, which no problem. I would too if I was involved in a murder, but I'm not. I'm involved in trying to solve the murder and get the 10 killers in jail. And I also am proving that her family was involved in her mind control. So I'm all for them doing whatever attack on me they need to do. That's their choice. But where did they get the first of all, the emails and stuff, those aren't even mine. I don't even know where that comes from. They use words in there I don't even use at all. And I use the C word all the time. I'm not denying that I say bad words. I'm only saying that the emails that they had displayed were not me and her talking at all. The audio recordings I did not listen to, but I do know I heard about a second of one of them. And that's a fight when me and Tiffany were at my house when she was at one of her altars screaming at the top of her lungs.
Yeah, they have her voicemail messages as well. I don't know how they managed to get a hold of her voicemail messages as well.
I don't know, but I would find it funny that they don't have anything about the murder. They don't have anything about the therapist. They don't have anything about her killers. They don't have anything about her killers getting away with murder. They only have stuff because I'm trying to solve the murder. And so, it doesn't bother me at all. I expect it. Fritz Springmeier and David Icke, they told me you better be ready to be attacked every which way, but period. And I'm ready. I get it. That's their job. But none of that matters. What they're trying to do. Okay, first of all,
it's a distraction, basically.
Absolutely. It's like you don't see them talking about the fact that the police won't release the video so I can prove 8 more people killed Tiffany. They don't have that anywhere. They just have John is a bad person. Okay, so here's how it went. After Tiffany died for 6 months, her family was, oh, John, Tiffany loves you. Don't worry. Just, be happy. Don't worry. We're behind you. Then when I got facts that they were lying and I told them they were lying, then And I got the recordings from the therapist. And I told him that I had them because the day I got into her iCloud, stuff like that, I gave them to them, not into her iCloud, but into the phone that basically became a backup from the iCloud, from somewhere in the cloud. I don't know where they stored the audio, but on my phone. So basically I gave them all that stuff, and then all of a sudden they became enraged and they took me to court. So then I was in court for a year and a half with them, and they got a gag order, basically a restraining order. And then when that was lifted because they lost in court, then I took my recordings, I left the country. Now they didn't do anything at all. They just wanted to keep it hush hush. But because I went public in such a huge way, they hired some marketing firm out of Seattle. I don't even know. It's basically Tiffany's handler, Rick Lovett, and the marketing firm. They're just out to try to make me the bad guy. Now, let's give you an example. They're trying to claim that I made all my money from filming people at my business and selling them in Thailand. And I'm like, okay, so
Right.
I have a spa business that's been in Oregon for 25 years. And they just today figured out that I'm recording people sexually and sending them to Thailand. So they're really far reaching. And all of this is just to stop me from solving the murder of Tiffany. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I don't even go to their sites at all. I don't care what they're doing. I just focus on the fact that Tiffany didn't die the way the police said. The DA lied. The judge and the cops lied. What am I going to do about it?
I think we should just sort of explain to our listeners that it was pretty much like pure luck that you found these recordings, because by restoring her phone, whatever app she used to record and make these recordings, it restored the recordings onto her phone, even though her iCloud had been wiped. This was separate from her iCloud, right?
That's correct. And also, by the way, in this group, I call them the pro Tiffany dead group. That's what I call them, because they're so glad she's dead that they're lying. But they don't even admit that Jonathan Weidman, who's her therapist, is him. For the first year, they tried to say I'm a liar. It's just a guru. So finally, I had shown David Icke and Richie Allen the way that I knew for sure it was Jonathan Weidman, her therapist. And I'll just tell you because everybody knows now. But in the last part of the recording, Tiffany says, "Jonathan, I love you. Where's your office?" And he says, 2 blocks that way, 1130 Southwest Morrison. And that's his address to his shop. I never had told the public how I knew because, see, I was withholding a lot of information for an eventual FBI investigation as to how I know certain things. I'm not going to tell those scumbag liars everything I know and how I know it, but that was one example of them protecting the person that told. I mean, here's an example of something that Jonathan Weidman said to Tiffany in the recording. "Don't tell anyone who you are. You know why? It'll make you a target, and targets get shot at first." And then he said, "There's a war going on between the light and the dark, and people of the light are being attacked by people of the dark. And I'm going to tell you that's going to get a lot worse." And Tiffany said, "They know who I am." And he said, "They don't know who you are, and you should never tell anybody who you are." And then he says, "Lose any friends you have, no temptations." And he says, "You'll get the answers when you die." She was dead 4 days later.
Right. Is this therapist still practicing?
Correct, he is.
He is.
Yes, absolutely. Because they're trying to deny. And for the first year, they tried to say it was a guru. But see, I had known based on his address who it was. But, back to your point about the luck of God in getting the audio. It's not even just that. I mean, I'm going to tell you how I got that all in a second just to make it real clear. But after I got it, getting it to Clyde Lewis, the talk show host that was talks in America about paranormal stuff, because it took the combination of all of those things to bring me to where I am today. But so Tiffany and I lived together. We shared iTunes together. And because the technology caught up with the Illuminati, they didn't expect me to get them. I was supposed to be arrested for murder. Okay?
Right.
And so, but because Tiffany had my phone, and I don't think they questioned that. I hope not, because everybody knew I was mad. Tiffany had my iPhone. And so that was very well known. She had my phone. And so But because she had my phone and she made those recordings on an application that, of course, you could create any recreation of any application once you have the account, the audio note was the program. The audio note inside of her, what would then be iTunes, when it was recreated, still had nothing until I turned it on and off. And the day I got those recordings was the day I learned that Tiffany, the best part of it is that she was in love with me 100% because I was in love with her. And so I think that was the best part that came of it. But what she had in those recordings told everything. And here's the thing that was a real telltale sign of the Illuminati murder. Nobody cares about what's in the recordings. They only care about how I got them.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, they don't care about Tiffany. If they cared about Tiffany, when the doctor said, "You'll get the answers when you die," they would go to that doctor and say, "What did you mean?" Oh, by the way, Tiffany says that there's going to be vampires. It's not going to be on TV or whatever. Maybe it is. She's talking about the night she's going to die. And he said, Jonathan Weidman said, he's going to watch it with her, whatever that is. So did she die from vampires? I don't know what you want to call them, but Michelle Warren-Brosey worked for the morgue dressing dead people. So I would consider that to be about as close to a vampire as one might get. So in the recordings with her therapist, they're talking about the event that's going to happen. And she says, watch it. You're going to watch it with me. And then she says, it's not going to be like vampires. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. And then he says, I am going to watch it with you. So, and if this was your sister or your daughter that was dead, you might want to find out how he said, don't tell anybody who you are or it'll make you a target, and targets get shot at first. And 4 days later, she was shot.
Yeah.
I would want to know.
Another thing I wanted to go into was like the people that were around her, like in the 6 months of the year before she died. Do you think a lot of those people were involved in setting up this murder? And do you want to talk about some of the people who have like come into your life after she died that you've also talked about before, and why they have come into your life? Like, have they come to discredit you, or have they come to help you, or how, if you can explain how that's happened?
Yeah,
the people.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, totally. I think the key to this is that now that hindsight's 20/20, you got to go back before she died, and then you have to look after she died and say, who are these people that became your friend? Prior to me knowing what mind control was, I just thought these people were kind of nuts sometimes. I didn't understand it. But I've posted on Facebook the names of the people, but you've got, for an example, you've got Amber Thornburg walking by my store with the killer. Now, Amber also is the one that stole my mother's iPads, that had my recordings on them, and she's currently working with what I call the Pro Tiffany Dead group. And so, and then on top of that, you've got a gentleman that's the ex-district attorney in Portland. His name's Jeff Dickey, and he became my legal help. So you can't imagine after somebody dies that these people become your friend, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, he's the ex-district attorney. We went to the casino together. We became friends. And I was introduced to him by Tyson. And Tyson is a girl that was involved in the murder also. And Tony. So I got an email from Tiffany that said, John, Tony, Tyson, they want me to die. And I have that email, right? And so, but all of these people, the Tony, the Tyson, the Jeff Dickey, who's the ex-district attorney. Now, just taking just the ex-district attorney, if you go to Google and you type in Tiffany Jenks Jeffrey, you will see a video of him walking by my store with Tiffany's killer the night she died. Okay? So now you have to ask yourself, okay, so slow down here. You're telling me that the ex-district attorney in Multnomah County, which is Portland, Oregon, is walking by your store with the killer of Tiffany? Exactly. And it's really simple to prove. Ask the police in Fairview to give me the video of Tiffany's killer. Because here's the thing. So type in Google, Tiffany Jenks and Jeffrey and look at the video of the girl and the little girl, that's the one they molested, and Jeff Dickey walking by my store that night. And then all we need is the video from the bar. And this, because see, what happened was after they killed Tiffany, Michelle and Josh ran off to Kelso, Washington, and changed their hair, changed their cell phones, changed their identity, the way they looked, so that it wouldn't match the video at my store the night she died. But that's exactly why the police are lying. They're all protecting each other. Now, one step past that, you got Joshua, Tiffany's killer, co-killer. Why won't they release the audio depositions of Josh? Because they know I have audio recording in Tiffany's phone with Josh and him saying, all you have to do is type in Tiffany Jenks Josh, and it'll come up on YouTube. And here's a recording of Josh talking to Tiffany about buying a gun. So step by step, you have multiple people. Now, the last person I'm going to explain, this one, just type in Tiffany Jenks Drew, D-R-E-W, Drew. Now, this is the biggest one. Now, later I learned that she was a mind control victim, and I mean an extreme one. Great girl. I feel horrible that she's a mind control victim. She reminds me completely of Kathy O'Brien. But Drew was walking by my store the night Tiffany died, and how I found out was one day the gentleman walking with her, which is her boyfriend, his name is Pico, he emails me and says, "Hey, have you seen Drew?" And I'm like, "No, why?" And he goes, "Well, she's missing." I sent him the video of her walking by with him. Now, this was 2 years after her murder, okay? And he says, "Yeah, that's me. Where'd you get that?" He didn't know why he was there, but he did say that was him and her. Now, after Tiffany died, so she's in the video. I didn't know her yet. I hadn't met her, but I magically met her at a store 6 months after Tiffany died. Wow. Randomly. So this goes to show how great the Illuminati and the mind control program works. This girl, Drew, is involved in Tiffany's murder under mind control, and she's walking by my store the night she died. While Tiffany's at my home, she's walking by my store with this guy, which, believe me, nobody walks near my store at that time of night. And I didn't even know her. And then she became one of my best friends, and she worked with Jeff Dickey on my legal stuff to help the legal part of it. But mysteriously, everything she did was deleted, stolen, gone, missing. All my stuff is gone. And I kept getting really frustrated until finally I had to not be her friend anymore. But the point is, if what I'm telling you is true, and it is, that Drew met me 5 months after Tiffany died, and later I learned she was walking by my store while Tiffany was there, and you'll see her because she always has ponytails, she always has super high boots, and she always has a square coconut water in her hand. But more importantly, her boyfriend Biko confirmed that was her. So when you talk about all the things that are going on after Tiffany died, they knew for sure every single thing I was thinking and doing. And both Drew and Amber and Jeff, all they ever said was, "Oh, John, you're crazy. That's ridiculous. Oh, crazy." Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. So basically what you have is when there's a murder of a mind control victim and anybody speaks up, the first thing they do is try to figure out every single thing about you. And then they try to ruin everything about you, which is your business, your mom, your cop. In fact, my police officer friend, his name is Robert Shire, S-H-I-R-E. He started helping me, and he said he had to be real careful, and he was helping me, and then he ended up dead. And so you have, whether it's related or not, no, of course, nobody will know. But all this stuff is happening simultaneously while you're trying to get justice. Now, putting all those things aside, if anybody looks into Tiffany Jenks' murder and they think that these people met her randomly and shot her in the head randomly, they too would have to be nuts. It's just not possible. And I think that's the difference between my story and the people that are trying to badmouth me or ruin my life. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm talking about the killers, and they're talking about me. So what you'll notice too is that you don't see one single word about the killers Not that they molested a little girl after they killed Tiffany. Not that they didn't hear the gun. Not that they, got away with murder after 13 months. In fact, Tiffany's mom gave the killer a hug. So I don't get that. I'm not giving anybody who killed my girlfriend a hug. Sorry.
Yeah. I think this happens a lot with murders. They claim they don't remember what happened, or maybe they were in an altar when they killed this person, and stuff like this. So do you think the actual shooter was under some kind of mind control?
No, I think he was actually set up. I was going through the police reports that have his written depositions. Now, there's no audio, of course, but in terms of his depositions to police, basically he's saying that they set him up, and none of the paperwork or none of the depositions were ever used in court. And I want to reiterate this, that not one word, first of all, they didn't have court for Tiffany's murder, but let's just pretend they did. Not one single word was ever spoken by any of the three killers in court. Not one. Daniel Brunell, the shooter, I have his depositions here where he talked about, coming from California, shooting Tiffany eventually, which is after a while he admitted it. But he said that they handed him the gun and told him, you either shoot her or we'll shoot you.
Right.
So Michelle and Josh are clearly the killers. Now, the reason the Judge Henry Cantor, has never, ever told the truth in this murder, I would have to believe that he's fully aware of the 50,000 people on my Facebook page at Tiffany Jenks Murder, and he's fully aware of my accusations against his courtroom, but that there are so many people that are lying in this murder, it would be detrimental to tell the truth at this point. So my only real hope is that the FBI takes over the murder case and assists me. The other option is that they'll just be able to shut me up, which is what they're working on diligently. And that's typical, so whatever.
Have you had any threats on your life?
Oh yeah, tons. But they don't bother me. I expect them. I mean, I think David Icke really gave me a talking to one day. I met him in New Zealand, and he basically, laid it out. So, they will do whatever it takes to protect themselves and their mind control victims. If you could imagine, in this case alone, you have 8 people involved approximately in her murder that are all under mind control. They have invested an exorbitant amount of money and time on these mind control victims. And if you look at Drew alone, I mean, she is just an amazing person. She reminds me so much of Kathy O'Brien, but a younger one. But she is able to do anything at any time to anyone and have no recollection of any of it, or no guilt, if you will. I know it's not her fault, but you've got these people that are just absolutely brainwashed. You've got Amber Thornburg, who's involved, walking by with the killer on the video in front of my store. And you could talk to her all day long and say, Amber, you're walking by with Tiffany's killer. What? You're crazy. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they say over and over. That's the logo of the Illuminati. You're crazy, you're on drugs, or you committed suicide. Those are the 3 things they say over and over and over.
What is the name of the town where she was killed again?
Fairview, Oregon. Fairview, Oregon, in America, is about 5 minutes from Portland. Portland, Oregon, is the largest city. It's about 1 million people. Fairview is about 10,000 people. And that was the problem when I was going to the police. Now, here's another thing that's interesting. When you go to the police and you have mountains of evidence for a murder, and it involves a ritual killing like this, every single thing they did was never to help me. It was only to figure out how to stop me. So I would give them the recordings of the killer, Josh, and then they would just not release the recordings for court. I would give them the recordings of the therapist, and they would like for instance, when I came to the state of Oregon, they told me they don't work on conspiracy theories. I said, he's talking to her about getting shot in the head. I don't see how that's a conspiracy theory, because 4 days after his recording, she was actually shot in the head.
Right.
So why is he saying don't tell anybody who you are or you'll be a target, and targets get shot at first, and that she'll get the answers when she dies, and vampires and all these different things? And how does that not matter? But see, what I didn't know at the time was it only doesn't matter to the group. There's probably about a good 1,000 people in this cult that are in the state of Oregon, that, the New World Order, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. And they're bound and determined to keep their New World Order plans together. If it's true what I'm saying, and Tiffany was in this cult, and she was running the dams, America should be outraged.
Yeah, it really should. It really should. So how far did you said it didn't make it to court. How far did the legal system follow through?
Well, the district attorney in the case was Christopher Ramirez. He had about a 1 hour ramble about Michelle Warden-Brosie's magnets on her refrigerator, and the fact that she had a vampire costume. And the judge then made the sentencing, which, if you want to listen to the court proceedings, just type in YouTube, Tiffany Jenks and court, or Tiffany Jenks judge, and listen to the court proceedings. But basically what happened was they just got everybody to say, well, we plead out. So that way they'd had no court proceedings of any kind. And keep in mind, you got 3 killers. The one that shot her, he was set up, and the other 2 handed him the gun or whatever. But the 2, Michelle and Josh, never even said, hi, my name is Josh, or sorry, not even one single word, because they knew for sure I had audio to prove Tiffany knew them. Now, here's why that matters. Of course, if people don't already know this. The difference between the idea that Tiffany met her killers and in 19 minutes they decided that she was so outraged they had to shoot her, and the difference between that and she was set up is life in prison in Oregon for all of them, because it's conspiracy to commit murder. And that's my problem. That's my problem. She was set up to die. She knew she was going to die. She was crying she was going to die. She told the bartender she was going to die. And so you don't see any of that on the Pro Tiffany Dead group page, right? They just discount it. And so the idea is, here's this girl crying that they're going to kill her, and the courts claim it's random. They just met her that night and shot her. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
Nobody could believe the story the police tell, and they're lying. The media is lying. So what I'm really saying is, you have the police that are lying, the media is lying, the courts were lying. Tiffany was telling the truth. They were going to kill her, and they did kill her. She told her therapist they were going to kill her. She knew she was going to die. She told me, and I'd have to believe she might have even told her family. But it just seems that I was the only person telling the truth in this case. And, heck, Tiffany emailed me she was going to die, but they try to claim that, yeah, John's lying about that. Yeah, like I'm going to lie about an email she sent me saying she's going to die.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Well, hey, I'll take a lie detector test any day. No problem.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. But of course, if they're all under mind control, MK Ultra, it really would have been quite strange for someone who is an outside observer to see, because they would have just met up with her, used keywords to basically put her in a trance or to make her follow through with certain things, and that they just turn into robots. But from the outside perspective, people have absolutely no idea of how this works.
You're right. And I think that Tiffany's case should be, if it was properly explained, I'm so new to it, and you guys know all about this, but if the general public in Oregon, in America and throughout the world looks into Tiffany's murder, it will be probably the first murder case where there's so much evidence, even the general public can't deny that it's odd that this person was under mind control, because in the recordings with her therapist, he puts her under mind control. Tap, 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 yes. Follow the yellow brick road. And then once they connect that dot they're going to have to step back and go, wait a minute. So if she could possibly be under mind control, and that's why she died in 19 minutes, because who else would go die? She left my house telling me she's going to die. Who would do that? And then she left the bar. She said the bartender, her life was over. She walked outside to go die. Who would do that? Nobody. But if all of that is true, and it is, why was she running 21 dams?
Well, exactly. And yeah, exactly. So she would have been primed for it. She would have been part of a bigger network, obviously, which would all protect each other. But obviously, you.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I just got totally, I think we've lost Taj. I got knocked off.
Okay.
This is what happens when you speak the truth.
Yeah, no kidding, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what were you saying, though?
I was just saying how it would have been part of a bigger network. But obviously, I was just saying that you obviously had a baptism of fire into all of this, because you would have not known. You would have thought, great girl, she's got alcoholic problems, trying to help her with the alcoholic problems, and all of this other stuff didn't probably hit you until you were trying to find out, why isn't her murder being taken seriously? Why isn't
exactly you're exactly right.
Justice?
That's exactly what happened. Totally what happened. And here's the thing, right? And because I kicked her out of my home because of her drinking, I stopped their plan from following through properly, or they would have had way more stuff to set me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Way more. I was never supposed to be able to have this conversation with anybody. Likely, I would have got the death penalty in Oregon because I was set up on her murder.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, you're back. Yeah,
Welcome
I
back.
was trying to get you back on.
Sorry, my internet just went down.
Us
I don't
too.
know what happened.
We did too.
Yeah,
But-
we went as well.
I was just telling her that I was never supposed to be able to tell the story. I was set up on her murder, and in Oregon, that would have carried the death penalty. I would have been dead. They would have never seen my closed circuit television cameras. See, because if you go back a little bit and you go, okay, so the police came to you, right? They did, and they talked to me, and I never knew anybody to die. I thought the police were supposed to be honest, and so I was telling them everything I could to help, and they were not helping. And so I knew they were lying. I knew her family was lying, but I didn't know what to do about it. And so, but everywhere I turned, they all said, let the murder go. And I thought to myself, let the murder go? You've got to be out of your mind. I'm not letting murder go. And so it was more than about 30 seconds after she died, 30 seconds after I found out she died, that I began writing down everything I remembered that happened. And so the bottom line is that when you take all the clues I have, there's about 100 of them that I have now, it just points to the fact that the police are corrupt, the courts are corrupt, her family lied, Tiffany died, not the way they said, her killers got 13 months in jail for murder and a $200 fine. Just that alone. Any taxpayers out there that realize their killers, after the taxpayers spent $500,000 prosecuting this case, and it's not even right, so now we have to start over eventually, but that the killers got a $200 fine? You got to be kidding me. Who gets a $200 fine for murder?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, slightly.
Do you want to talk a little bit about? Sorry, go ahead, Nyssa. Were you going to ask something?
No.
Do you think her family was involved? Like, I know her father died, but
Yeah.
are you still in contact with her mother?
Oh, no. Okay, so how that happened was after she died, her mother could, after I was not the killer, they knew who the killers were, right? Her mother was trying to be all nice to me, and I was being nice to her, telling her sorry, and but every part of the investigation I would tell her, she would come back with something that just made no sense to me. Like December 6th, 60 days after she's dead, she said, John, we're not going to let this murder consume us. And I thought, well, that's weird. Okay. So, and then her sister, so right out of the gate, her sister said some lies, like, for instance, that Tiffany lived downtown, and Tiffany never lived downtown. That was to protect where she really lived, which was Tony's house. And Tony's one of the people circling the block. And so it's no mystery. They protected where she really lived. Her sister said, I had no idea where my sister was. I just knew that she had an abusive ex-boyfriend. Of course, that's me, right? I'm the abusive one. And so, and then her sister said that Tiffany was writing a book, and I go, oh, let me guess, you have it. So these people, and then her sister collected donations to help solve the murder, but they never wrote down one fact of the murder out of the money. Tiffany was also supposed to get about $1 million in her father's will, which she told me her family was fighting her for it. So I never heard about that. I never got a copy of the autopsy, which I asked for 1 million times. So every single thing along the way, they were lying to me. And so once I flat out knew they were lying and I told them they were lying, then they took me to court to shut me up. So they know how this stuff works. I swear to God, and this is something I was talking to Vanessa Bates about, Max Spear's mother, is that these people have a book and they know how to deal with these murders. So I wanted to tell her all the things I learned about what it's like to be on her side or my side of the story. Because when you're set up, or when somebody you love is murdered by the Illuminati or the New World Order, you don't understand any of this stuff. Heck, how would I know what a mind control victim was that was going to come be my friend? But once you get the idea of that you're involved in something from the occult world, all the rules and normal thought processes are off the charts. You have to begin to say, what should I expect? So what should I expect for me? Okay, so I should expect them to attack me personally. They are. I should expect them to lie 100%. They are. I should expect them to tell me to let the murder go. They are. I should expect them to try to stop me any way, shape, or form, both financially. Shortly after the murder, I was about 6 or 8 months after, I got an email from Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. By somehow I reached out to them and they responded. And Kathy O'Brien said the best part. She says, John, trust me, you're vulnerable right now, and they will do anything they can to get you in more vulnerable situations and attack you that way. And she's right. And that's some of the clues, or like what David Icke said, don't forget who you are, because they will try to make you feel like something you're not. But once you're under attack, then it's time for you to realize who you are and never forget it. The same thing I told Max Spear's mother. Do not let them ever make you think anything. I know Tiffany did not die the way they said. That's all that matters. If they want to attack me because I'm trying to get justice for Tiffany, more power to them. Go ahead. I'm not stopping, so I don't care.
Yeah, I think Vanessa's been through like the same sort of thing as you. She's gone through a very steep learning curve, having to learn about a lot of this stuff, about mind control, about a lot of satanic stuff, and a lot of stuff that you don't really want to know about. She's had to learn all of this stuff really after Max died.
Yeah, and I talked to her for a couple of hours shortly. I'd say right after she did the Richie Allen show. Richie recommended that I talk to her, and I did. I talked to her on the phone, and we chatted back and forth. But you see, what goals they try to make is they want you to be alone. They want to remove your family. They want to remove your friends. They want to threaten anybody and everybody that you work with. The other people they set you up with are now your friends. And those people, and if you don't know what's going on, you're oblivious to it all. That's different. But, the public can't imagine how well thought out this type of a murder is. And it doesn't take very much of a smart person to look into Tiffany's murder and go, something's not right here. So somebody's lying. Now, let's pretend that for a minute, just for hypothetical, that I beat the crap out of Tiffany all the time. I still didn't kill her. Her killers killed her, and they got out of jail. Now, you think her family or the Pro Tiffany Dead group would say something about the killers, but you never hear a peep about them. Now, if they think 13 months is fine for murder, fine, but they're not telling the truth. Tiffany knew she was going to die, and until they get that through their head, I'm not stopping. But I get the idea while they need to demonize me, they're only one more person away from a murder, getting away with murder. That's me. If I shut up, they get away with murder.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, basically, you haven't been able to go back to the United States for over a year, right?
Yeah, I've basically been gone from America for about 2.5 years now, consistently, except for 1 week. But, you know, I could go back tomorrow. I'm an American citizen. I can go back tomorrow. But, you know, I equate it to the same thing as Donald Trump's up against. You've got this deep state or occult world that's running our government. They are the police. So where would I turn to? What possibly, who's going to help me? You know, so that's why I went to the public straight. Prior to me getting on Facebook and creating this Tiffany Jenks murder Facebook page, they were appeasing me or ignoring me. So I went to the public directly. And once you make that leap and you're not stop and you know you can't stop, there's no more to talk to them about. I don't talk to her family. I don't talk to the Pro Tiffany Dead group at all. I don't entertain anything they have to say. I don't even care what they have to say because they don't want Tiffany's killers arrested, and I do.
Right. The show's gonna finish in a few minutes. I just wanted to say, basically, like, your ultimate goal is to find who killed Tiffany Jenks, but who do you think actually did it then? I mean, if it wasn't these people who have been arrested and put in prison who are behind it, who do you think is ultimately behind her murder?
Well, I think we'd have to conclude that. Oh, by the way, before we end this, everybody should watch the TV show Bull, season 1, number 20. Bull, season 1, number 20. It's about mind control. Who killed her? The person who put her under mind control. So whoever her handlers were sent her to die that night. And I think that this murder should be the first one that proves it. Were there 8 people walking around my store setting her up to die? Yes. Should they go to jail? Yes. But the real killers are the people that put her under the mind control that night and sent her to die, which, in my opinion, would have to be her handlers and her therapists.
Right. It's a difficult one to actually prove.
Yes, it's never been proven. It's never been proven. But here's the thing. Times are changing. Evidence is changing. The public's becoming more aware. And I'm hopeful that 5 years from now, when I'm still working on this, 10 years from now, Tiffany's case will be the first one where her handlers go to jail for murder.
Right. Do you
want
to
hope. Hello?
Hello? Hi.
I think we lost him.
Taj?
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was on
he's
mute.
back.
Sorry, I was on mute.
It's okay. Welcome back.
I'm having a few Skype problems tonight. I don't know. Do you want to give out some information to people? If there is anyone out there who may have information to help towards finding the real killers of Tiffany Jenks, how do they contact you?
Well, I think that the real killers, I believe, are the ones circling my block, and I believe the 2 that got out of jail are the real killers. The problem I have is they never got arrested for murder, so I want to get them arrested for murder, premeditated murder. But Tiffany, on the Facebook page, I have Tiffany Jenks Murder, Facebook, and then my name is John S. Captain, Facebook, and then TiffanyJenksMurder.com. But primarily I use the Tiffany Jenks Murder Facebook page and John S. Captain page, and then also on YouTube. And I of course, I know that there's other sites out there attacking me, and heck, whatever, I don't care. But the bottom line is that, learning about Tiffany's case, I believe, will help change the world.
I agree, yeah. So if there's anyone out there with information that may help John find, at least find the killers, or, at least give information that would lead towards the real killers.
Yeah, or moral support too, because I know that with attacks, when you fight the Illuminati, they'll attack you night and day. So just even support in the sense of, positive.
Even anything
affirmation.
like spreading the message or sharing.
That's what I need. Yes.
Sharing your Facebook page on your on your timeline, or just visiting. I mean, is there information on your website as well? What kind of information is on your website?
Yeah, one of my problems is that I'm a horrible writer and my ADHD takes over. But TiffanyJenksMurder.com. But the Facebook page is important. It's Tiffany Jenks Murder on Facebook, and then also, people helping by writing stuff about her in their own stories. When you think of mind control, think of Tiffany Jenks, and also the recordings on YouTube are big. Go listen to her therapist. That's huge.
Yeah, so even people who may have similar stories to Tiffany Jenks, who
Absolutely.
are out there, may want to approach you, and they can share their story with you. It may help you in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I have hundreds of people that have contacted me, and the only thing I can do now with Tiffany's case is help other mind control victims.
Yeah, I agree. I think
that's all I can do.
I think for a lot of people, it's very difficult to get their head around that this could even be possible. That so many people could be under mind control, but it is real. It is happening right now, and more people may die. People in similar situations that Tiffany was in.
Yeah, and by the way, she was running 21 dams, so there you go.
Okay, well that's the end of the show. I just want to thank John for coming on the show tonight. Sorry for
Thanks for coming on, John.
Sorry for the few technical hiccups, but yeah. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.